Hi, everyone. I'm now up to 6 cats, I have to say. Oh my gosh, that's a recent development. Welcome, everybody. I'm super excited to be here and to talk about gaps in your career because gaps, oh my gosh, they happen. So, a little background. Why am I here to talk about this? Because it's personal to me. I started working in college. And I worked several years in college and then hit the ground running. I worked for several years and then, okay, I'm telling my age a little bit, the dot-com bubble burst. And oh my gosh, a year and a half went by and I thought it was the end of the world. But then I did get another job, and it was really easy to justify not having a job back then because everybody knew that the dot-com bubble burst and there were no jobs. So then I worked another 5 years, and then I decided to have my second child, and I worked through the first one being born, and it's the childhood of my first son, and then my second child came along, and I really felt like, gosh, I don't want to miss out this time around. And so I decided to be a stay-at-home mom, and it was just going to be for a few years, and then a few years turned into a few more years, and next thing I knew, it had been 10 years for me staying at home. And then I was like, okay, I'm good. I've done the stay-at-home mom thing, and I really want to get back into technology. And technology did not stay still, as you can imagine. So I decided I really wanted to go back into tech, but tech had changed around me. So how on earth was I going to get back into technology? So I really had to work hard to bootstrap myself back into technology, but I did it. And I went back into work as a software developer and then worked my way back up, and now I'm a manager. So this was this is a story that's near and dear to my heart, and I really wanted to share my story and share some of the tricks and tips that I used to get back into technology. So first of all, I want to talk a little bit about what are the gaps. I did a little bit of research, and women especially are really impacted by gaps in their careers. So the Census Bureau talks about moms versus non-moms. They have a huge impact to their career in terms of not only the size of the company where they work, as well as their salary. And then the Family Care Alliance talks about the fact that women are caregivers. And not only do they care for the young, but they care for the older people in their family. So huge amounts of women decrease their working hours, and they pass up a promotion, or they don't get as much training, or women take a leave of absence to care for people in their family, or they switch from full-time to part-time, or they quit their jobs, or they retire early. This is a huge impact on women, especially. And then, of course, we all know about COVID. Look at these numbers, people. 8.4 million jobs were lost by women as of last year. And then the overall employment rate skyrocketed. And then the CDC says 1 in 4 illnesses were reported. So people just got sick, but then 1 in 2 COVID hospitalizations were reported, and then 1 in 1.3 COVID deaths were reported. So just COVID was a huge impact in our lives. And of course, I don't need to tell you that, but these numbers are just tremendous. And this is old data, right? So this isn't even the most current data for COVID, but this was, reported as of some last year numbers. So let's talk about keeping your hand in. When you aren't employed full-time, so this could mean you're employed part-time, or you actually don't have a job. Stay active in your field. So how do you do that? Well, There are alumni groups associated with the college that you went to. There are all different types of coding communities, and there are technical groups. You can stay in touch with people you used to work with. There are blogs and newsletters. You can volunteer your time and expertise. You can code for fun. You can also take very small contracts, or you can work in open source. And most of all, it's important to take time in your calendar for your career, even if it's just a small 30-minute time window once a quarter. You are important. As a caregiver, it's important to take time out for you, not just always giving. Women are so good at giving, but you yourself and your career, if you want to return to work, it is important to set aside time for you. Schedule it, put it on your calendar. So we're going to go through each one of these in a little bit more detail. So alumni groups, each one of your academic places that you have been, sometimes even all the way back to your high school, will have alumni groups. Get in touch with them. Find out what they're doing. A lot of times they will have small gatherings that they get together, and especially in the virtual world, man, we are so lucky. That's one of the silver linings of the COVID world, is everything's gone virtual. So get in touch with some of your old high school buddies. If you went to a community college, if you went to a larger university, even some of your old coworkers. I have alumni groups from some of the places that I used to work at, and stay in touch with those folks and find out if they are doing volunteer work, if they're doing staying in touch with each other in terms of, oh, hey, we're getting together, we're talking about the latest and greatest technology. Then, of course, there are coding communities. You could just Google any place and you will find there are all kinds of coding communities. Python, React, JavaScript, just any kind of code that you are interested in, man, there is a coding community out there for you. And there are women-based coding groups. There are coding groups for beginners, coding groups for experts. I mean, just any kind of coding community you're interested in, there's one out there for you. I highly recommend getting in touch with coding communities. And of course, technical groups, there are places where you can go and get certificates. Some of them are available for free, and some of them cost a small amount of money, depending on which technical group you're interested in. Blogs and newsletters. I do recommend that you put a filter on your inbox, because your inbox can fill up in a hurry if you sign up for every newsletter in the world. So be judicious in which newsletters you sign up for. Make sure that they're going to be something that's going to add value for you. But there are a lot of newsletters out there for the different technologies that you're interested in. Volunteering. Volunteering is great because find something you're passionate about. Me, I have been an animal fosterer for many years. My husband and I foster animals with a local shelter, and I can go to them and say, hey, I'm interested in, this is my passion. I really love to foster animals, but I also am a technologist. So how can I help you with the technology that you have in-house? And you will find that a lot of nonprofits are incredibly grateful to have help. So you can go to any place that you are passionate about, in whether it's crafts, whether it's hobbies, whether it's your local church, any kind of nonprofit. You can go to them and say, hey, I'm interested in technology, but I also am interested in helping your mission, whether it's a food bank or whatever, and ask them if they need help with their technology. And chances are they will take you up on it, and they'll say, oh, yes, we have this project that's going on, and just ask how you can help. And they will, a lot of times they will say, yes, we can absolutely use your help. And in helping a nonprofit, They get benefit out of it because they don't have to pay you, and you get help out of it because you get to hone your skills in an area that maybe you don't have expertise in. Coding for fun, always. I have 2 boys. We love to play video games, and so I'm always looking for ways to help them look for fun ways to code in conjunction with the video games that they do. So I have a little one who loves Minecraft, and Minecraft is one of the best places to learn how to code because it's based in Java. They have a lot of open source code places that you can go and look, and there's a lot of opportunities to do some really fun coding places in Minecraft. But there's a lot of other games that are out there as well where you can go. And so if you're interested in working with your kids, there's Hour of Code. There's a lot of places that you can do to do coding like that. And then if there's other areas that you're interested in for fun, again, you could just go and code for fun. Taking small contracts, that's a whole area we can talk about. And I have some more slides that I'll refer to that. And then working in open source. There is a whole open source community. You can Google open source, and it will take you to a whole section of area. Basically, open source says we are making our code available for the whole community to look at. That is versus closed source, where I'm a business, I'm working on my code, I'm selling it as a product, so I'm not going to let you see my code. Open source is the opposite. Open source says, we're going to make all of our code available for the broader community to look at. They can contribute to it and add on freely with no charge. So the open source community, a lot of nonprofits use open source, and even there's some, like my business, Influx Data, we have some of our code is closed source, but some of our code is open source. So there's a lot of really niche products that you can go and look at and that are open source, and you can look at it and say, oh, hey, that's a really great product. I think I can improve it. So I'm going to go write a little bit, contribute it to the code base, and then you get credit for having modified that product a little bit, and it's actually out there for the whole world to look at. So open source is a fantastic way for you to dip your toe into working a little bit in an area that is a code that you're familiar with. Open source is available in every language in the world. And you can just Google open source and then just start diving into the language that you're interested in and then finding an area. So that's a great, so I'm gonna keep going. Okay, so let's say you're not working or you're working part-time and you'd like to be making full-time. Let's talk about making a comeback. So you've got some gaps in your career and you want to come back to either a different area in your career, or so let's talk about the 3 things you need to do. You need to revive your skill set, you need to prepare for your job search, and then you actually need to look for a job. So we'll dive into each one of those. Reviving your skill set. So as I've talked previously, today, more than ever before, we have so many different ways of looking and enhancing your skill set. There are online tutorials, just a plethora of online tutorials, free and paid. There's meetups. Meetup.com is one of the most popular ones, but there's a lot of them through local coding groups, through your university, through community colleges. Women Who Code has coding groups, etc. You can take classes from actual coding schools, local colleges and universities. Again, I mentioned volunteer work, the open source community. You can actually go in, look for a project to create a brand new one, or you can fix a bug. There are lots and lots of projects out there where they say, hey, there's a bug. You can go through, you can scroll through all the different issues, and you can say, oh, here's a little bug. Oh, I think I can actually fix that. You can get an internship. So there are a lot of places that will offer not just free internships, but paid internships. And they will offer those not just to people who are brand spanking new right out of college, but they will offer those up to anyone. So you can look for internships. And then there's also contract work. So you can take on small, mini, micro contracts. We're talking things that take a week, things that take a month, just a couple of months, and do contract work. And you can do those through, I list just a couple of sites, but there's many sites out there, Upwork, HackerRank. Those two sites work kind of like, almost like Uber for contract work. So those will allow you to say, here are my skills. And then they match you up with someone on the other side who says, I have a job and I'm looking for certain skills. So they will actually pair you up with, if you have these skills and here's somebody who's looking for those skills, then they actually do the hard work of matching you up. So you can do some contract work. That's actually how I began my journey when I had a 10-year gap and I knew I needed to up my skill level. And I started by doing contract work. I did a very small contract of about 3 months. And I did my contract work by going through my contact list of people that I used to work with. And I said, hey, does anybody have any contract work that they have for me? And somebody did. And they said, yes, I absolutely could use your help. They had their own company. And they said, I really need some help doing X, Y, and Z. So I did that for a very short period of time. And that helped me refresh my skills. I also did a number of free online classes. And I did that. And then I did some contract work. And that was allowed me to get the next job, which was another short contract work, which then, and I got that through going to a meetup. And through a meetup, I was able to make a connection who got me an interview. And then from there, I was able to get my next job. So preparing for a job search, this is some basic preparation that anybody would tell you for job search, but it's particularly important for people who have had a gap in their resume. So especially for folks who are like, oh, I haven't looked for a job for a while, the job world has changed. So you must have a LinkedIn profile, and you need a picture. You don't need, it's not Facebook, so you don't want a picture with your dog. Just have a plain picture. It doesn't have to be a special portrait or anything like that, but just a plain picture is great. If you don't have a recent job, so go ahead and put all the jobs that you do have, but if you don't have a recent job and you do have some volunteer work or some contract work that are small jobs, go ahead and fill that in. Fill in contract work. Volunteer work, fill in work for self. That absolutely counts. So people want to know that you have worked in unpaid positions. If it's an unpaid internship, anything like that, they want to know that you've been doing something with yourself. So fill that in. That absolutely counts. If you are a coder, I do recommend having links to coding projects that you'd like to showcase. For example, if they're on open source, or if you just have a sample project that you've coded someplace, I absolutely do recommend putting those links on your LinkedIn profile. You can put them on your resume. It's less important on your resume because when people have a hard-coded resume, the chance of them clicking through links is less likely, but on LinkedIn, definitely. And then some companies these days are definitely taking a look at other social sites, so Facebook and Twitter. So check your privacy and your profile settings. Make sure that in Facebook, there's a way for you to actually click on it and say, show me what other people see. So make sure and use that setting and check to make sure what a stranger would see if they go to your Facebook page or if they go to your Twitter feed to make sure that what they see is professional and appropriate, and that you're not showing things that would be unprofessional or inappropriate. Also, update your resume with a skills section. So this, long ago, people when they had their resume, they didn't really necessarily have a skills section. But as a manager, I will tell you that is the first place that I look. on a resume as I check out that skills section. And if you don't have the languages that I'm looking for, I'm just going to pass on your resume. So make sure you have a skills section and be honest. Be honest on your skills section, right? So don't put every single language in the world that you've ever looked at once. Put the skills section on there that you're comfortable with. You really want the quality, not the quantity. For folks that are newer in their career, try some basic programming test skills. There are practice tests or practice technical interviews that you can have all over the place. HackerRank has some. LinkedIn for a while had some tests that you could take. I'm not sure if they still do, but anyway, they're all over the internet. So try your basic programming test skills. That will get you comfortable in testing so that when you come, almost every interview nowadays has some kind of technical interview, and you need to be comfortable knowing that someone's going to test you on those technical interviews. Every company is different in terms of how hard they are in their technical interview. So for example, my company, we are an open book, open note when we come to technical interviews. So we're not expecting to have everything in your head because that's not how we work. We absolutely allow you to open up Stack Overflow and open up the W3C docs and to look up all of the last little ticky dot technical things, but not every technical interview is the same. So you might want to practice some of those. And then last but not least, have an explanation ready for your gap. So when somebody asks you, why do you have this 3-year gap? It's absolutely a perfectly acceptable answer to say, I was looking after my family. I was raising a child, or you can say, and, not but and I also kept my hand in by doing volunteer work at XYZ, helping them maintain their website. And I also made sure to attend some conferences. And I also did XYZ. So they know that although you were taking care of business on a personal level, at the same time, your career was important to you and you kept your hand in from a technical perspective. Last, what to do while you're actually job hunting. And these are, again, pretty basic information, but if you haven't been job hunting for a while, have an idea of what you're looking for. Don't just say, well, I'll take anything. And I know that's very tempting when you haven't had a job for a while, but it's pretty off-putting for me as a manager when I'm trying to hire somebody. I want to hire somebody who's wanting to do what I'm hiring somebody to do. Network. Tell all your friends and families and old coworkers and everybody, put it on your LinkedIn, put it on your Facebook, tell everybody that you are looking, because a lot of times you will get that job because so-and-so told so-and-so, oh, I know somebody who's looking for a job. We have a job opening at my company, and you get connected through people who know that you're looking. So absolutely network all the time. Apply, apply, apply. This is your full-time job to get a job. Track your progress. Make sure that you know where you applied and when. So I'm a nerd. I use a spreadsheet, but do whatever works best for you, but track your progress. Make sure you know where you've applied and when. Don't just stick to one website. Indeed is great, but it's not the only one. So make sure that you are using multiple websites, because there are some jobs, some companies that are only going to use one, but there are other companies out there that only use another. So make sure to spread yourself around when you're looking. Think about contract to perm when you're first looking for a job. Don't be afraid of contract to perm. This is a way for a company to say, we're going to try you before we buy. And that basically protects the company to say, well, you have a gap in your work history. And so we're just going to make sure that when we're going to put you on a contract first, but basically, you do a good job and they're going to hire you. Contract to perm is nothing to be afraid of. It basically is a protection for the company. But if you're going to do a good job, they're absolutely going to hire you. And what happens in most cases, a lot of the people that I've talked to who do contract to perm, and that's actually what I did when I was hired contract to perm, they say, we will contract you for 6 months and then hire you permanent. But you do a good job, and 3 to 4 months in, there's like, oh, you're fantastic. We're actually going to go ahead and convert you. So you don't even end up serving out the full 6-month contract. They will hire you immediately. They just want to make sure, kick the tires a little bit and go, oh yeah, this person is going to be a good fit. So they're going to go ahead and roll you into a permanent position as soon as they realize, oh yeah, this person's fantastic. And last but not least, have a cheerleader support person. So while you're doing a job hunt, it is a hard slog. So definitely call somebody and say, hey, will you be my support person while I'm job hunting? All I need you to do is just listen to me gripe a little bit and celebrate my small wins. It absolutely makes a huge difference when you are job hunting to have somebody who's going to be there for you. It is preferable to not have it be your spouse or your significant other, right? Because they have other duties related to being in relationship with you. So it's better to have a friend, an old mentor of yours, an old boss of yours or an old coworker, just to have somebody who is going to be that support person to say, rah, rah, you can do this. Don't give up. You're doing great. Just another quick thing of what not to do while job hunting. Although it's great to network with absolutely everybody and their dog, tell them that you are looking for a job. Don't expect them to have a job for you. So their job is just to keep their ear to the ground. And if they know of a job, let you know, but don't expect them to have a job for you, right? So all you're doing is just saying, hey, want to let you know, I'm looking for a job. If you hear of something, please let me know. End of story. Don't expect replies from all your applications. I think this is the most frustrating thing I hear from a lot of applicants. They say, hey, I've sent out all these applications and I'm not hearing anything back. That is super, super frustrating, and I absolutely feel your pain. As a manager, I have gone through, for one position, 1,800 resumes, and I do my best to reply to each and every one of them and let them know if they're not even in the running. I send an email back and say, I'm sorry, you're not what I'm looking for. And I try to do that every single time. But I tell you, it is difficult to make sure that I reply back to each and every one. So, and I work for a really tiny company. And so I do all of my own sifting through of resumes. If you're at a larger company, they have all kinds of AIs, and they have a layer of HR that you go through before you even get to the hiring manager. So all I can tell you is I feel your pain, and it's very frustrating. So I'm telling you right now, you're not necessarily going to hear replies from everything. Don't expect every company to move at the same pace. This is also really frustrating when you are looking for a job, you're applying for multiple companies, and let's say you get an interview here, and then you get an interview 4 or 5 days later, and you're like, great, I have 2 potential things that are going at the same time. However, this company may say, great, you are in round 1 and we're going to put you through 3 rounds, but it takes 3 weeks to get you through 3 rounds. And this company may say, we have 4 rounds, but we're going to get you through in 4 days. We're going to go bam, 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 bam. So every company has a different pace and a different number of rounds they want you to go through. So it can be just don't expect them to move at the same pace. So ask for what you need. So if you are going through different interviews and you end up with an offer and you are in the process with another company, be honest. Tell them, I'm in interviews with another company and they are moving at a very different pace. You can always ask for the second company to speed up. we absolutely work with candidates and say, oh, you are moving faster, so we will move faster to make sure to accommodate the fact that you're moving faster with this other company. So ask for what you need, and usually the company will do their best to try to accommodate you. So ask for what you need. Tell them, be honest, and say, I'm in interviews with another company, and that way they will know that they need to try to adjust one way or another. So ask for what you need. And then the same, every step within the same company may move at a different pace. So it may be easy to get the lower level interviews scheduled, and it may be harder to get the upper level interviews scheduled. So it's a lot harder to get, it's easy to get my low level interview scheduled, and then it's really difficult for me to get my last interview scheduled, because I've got to get it with my CTO. And he's very difficult to get scheduled. So sometimes I can do really, really rapid interviews, and then trying to get that last interview scheduled, sometimes I pull my hair out because I'm trying to get on his calendar, and it's really difficult. So just be aware that sometimes the reason that the interviews can go really, really fast and then real slow is because of the levels of the people that you're trying to interview with. Their calendars may be really, really packed. So that's a little bit about expectations when interviewing at different levels within the company. And last but not least, don't give up hope. I know it can be really challenging when you are, it's been a while since you have worked, and you're thinking, oh, I've done so many applications and nobody's responding, but don't give up hope, because there's definitely a job out there for you. I have some resources here for everyone. I am going to make my slides available actually on my LinkedIn. I've already posted this slide deck. So this deck is available on my LinkedIn profile, so you can grab these resources at your leisure. But WWCode.com has some great conferences. They have job listings, they have technical groups. Meetup.com is an absolute fantastic place to find some coding groups. Dice.com is a fantastic place to find technical jobs. Udemy is a great resource for online tutorials for all different types of languages. opensource.org/community. It's a great place to find projects to work on if you want to dip your toe into the open source community. StackOverflow.com, if I'm sure most of you are familiar with it, but it's a great place to find technical help of all different places. You can not only search existing things for how to do something, but if you really absolutely cannot find the answer to a question, you can post a question and somebody will answer it for you. And last but not least, HackerRank, Upwork, and TopTool are great places to find contracts. So that's it for me. If anyone has any questions. Okay, so defining open source. So again, open source is when we have an open repository of code that is available for anyone, the public, to look at as well as contribute to. So that is in direct opposition to, for example, commercial code, where I want to sell it and I don't want anybody to look at it and I don't want them to contribute to it, so you can't see it. So I'm going to put it in a place where nobody can look at it. So for example, Java, typically, a lot of code, they put Java out there and they said, okay, not only are you going to be able to look at Java and look at the language and look at the API, but you can actually look at the underlying source itself. Java was the first language that you could go out and you could look at the underlying code base itself. And open source is fantastic in that you can go out and you can look at the code, but you can also contribute to it. So the community itself, Linux is that way as well. So a lot of Linux, BSD Linux, for example, you can go out and you can look at the Linux code and you can say, hey, there's a bug. And you yourself, you are empowered to go out there and fix it. So you can go out and you can propose a fix, and you can say, I see this problem. I'm going to pull the repo down. I'm going to put in some code. I'm going to fix it. I'm going to push it back up. And then other people will look at it and go, hey, yeah, that's a really great fix. I'm impressed. Yeah, that's a good fix. And then your name is associated with that fix in that repository. So that's what open source is. My opinion of unpaid internships, I'm not a fan. My company offers paid internships. I really prefer paid internships. I think if you're going to put your money, if you're going to put time into it, I think you should be paid for it. However, if there's a company out there that you are a super fan of and you really love their work, and it's going to offer you an opportunity to work in a code base that you are just super excited about, and you have the ability to support yourself in other means, go for it. I mean, it'll absolutely give you the opportunity to enrich your skills. So I always vote for paid internships if you can, but if you if it's something you're super passionate about and it's a company that you are really excited about, I wouldn't say don't ever take an unpaid internship. Networking groups specifically for women transitioning into tech later in life, say 40 plus. I would love to find that group. I have not, but I wouldn't mind starting one. That is a good question. Transitioning into tech. So there's certainly a lot of groups out there that are about transitioning into tech. In terms of older women in tech, I've definitely seen some older women in tech, but I haven't seen the two combined. So yeah, that's a really good question, and I think it's a great topic. And yeah, I'll propose that to a couple people and see if we can start one, or if I can come across one. Krista, I'm going to write your name down. And we'll see what we can come up with. Okay. That's a really good question. I personally have not experienced any issues with ageism, and I've read some really great articles recently that are talking about women coming into their own as we are getting older. Like women over 50 are experiencing a moment in tech right now. Even women over 60, 70, even into their 80s are experiencing a fantastic moment in tech right now, that we are just, because of our experience and because companies are really just, the light is starting to come on in terms of diversity, that I would say almost the opposite is true. That I'm really excited about being a 50-year-old woman in tech right now. If anything, I would say that me personally, because I took a 10-year gap in my career, I feel a little bit like I'm behind. Like I look around to some of my peers who are both men and women, so not just women, but men and women. And I think, man, if I hadn't taken those 10 years off, I could be so much farther along. And I really have to stop myself and go, you know what? I really valued those 10 years. Like those 10 years were important to me. I absolutely could not, I absolutely would not change. I do not regret taking those 10 years. So the fact that I took those 10 years and the fact that where I am right now in my career, I'm super happy that I am where I am right now, at 50 years old. And I have no plans on going anywhere. I plan on absolutely working for another 20 years at least. So the sky's the limit. And I am working I have active mentorships with CEOs and CTOs, and I am working all the time. I go to conferences like this all the time to talk about where my trajectory of where I'm going. And, you know, I have plans, you know, on getting to CTO or VP of engineering. So, you know, that's, and my boss is a woman. She has been a CTO, she has been a VP of engineering, and she's totally happy with where she is. And I'm excited, like she's an amazing woman to work for. And, you know, I have a lot of people in my life who are women and men, but who are also women. So I'm excited to be a woman at 50. And to me, the sky's the limit. I don't see ageism as being a problem, but thank you for asking the question. Okay, this is a really good question. When gap is due to a health issue, because I personally have had some health issues, and it's really up to you as to whether or not you personally feel like you want to disclose a health issue, because technically, you know, they are not allowed to ask you if it's a health issue. If the health issue is something that is resolved and, you know, you're fine and you know, it's not going to be an issue going forward, you can answer one way. If the health issue is something that is ongoing and it is going to be something that could potentially impact you going forward, then there's a different way to answer it. So let me address the first one first. If the issue is something that was in the past and it's not going to be an issue going forward, then you can say something along the lines of, you know, I had a health issue, it's resolved, and it's not going to be an issue going forward, and you don't have to disclose what the health issue was. And you could just leave it at that, just period. And they can't ask anything further. If the health issue is something that is ongoing, so it was worse, but it's better now, but it could potentially come back and, you know, might flare up again, then you can say something along the lines of, I had a health issue. It's resolved for the moment. However, you should know that potentially it could be impactful in the future. At the moment, it's under control, but I would be remiss if, you know, I mean, you as your own integrity, you have to say, I could potentially be impacted in the future. However, right now, I'm totally fine. I have an ongoing health issue, and I have I've had to file intermittent COBRA in the past. And at the time that I started, I basically had to say, you know, I was fine. It totally didn't impact me, and I didn't have any issues. But then it came up, and then they were like, well, you knew about this. Why didn't you say something? And so that kind of bit me. And I ended up not having a good relationship with an employer. So I feel like if I had been upfront about it, that relationship with that employer would have gone much better. So I caution you, if you have an ongoing health issue, to be very, very upfront about it with your employer, because it can cause things to go south.
All right. Well, we are at time. Thank you, everyone, for the wonderful questions. Thank you, Kristina, for your presentation and your very inspirational advice. If you would like to connect with her, Anna has posted Kristina's LinkedIn.
Yes.
Please do reach out and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure, everyone.